Hello and welcome to our weekend debate. We're back in full flow. It's fantastic. No social distancing again here. And I've got a very interesting panel. I'll start with Dion because we interviewed you only this week, but yes. I thought we need you on this panel. Okay. So explain to everyone a bit about yourself, please, Dion.
Okay. Well, my name is Dion Kroom. I'm originally from Brooklyn, New York. And I sort of moved to North Carolina when my whole family was 6 brothers to North Carolina. And I got here to England and then here. I joined the U.S. military when I was 18. And my first assignment was RAF Lakenheath in Suffolk from the U.S. to there. And I've been in the U.K. 43 years. Wow. So in that time, I've had several companies in the UK, mainly around sort of helping community. So I started out, I was the worldwide military distributor of Sinclair. Remember the old Sinclair computers, ZX80 through 81? So I sold close to about 2 million ZX81s and stuff to the U.S. military during that time. And then I then moved from there and I started Mac Academy, which was using training videos to teach people how to use the old Macintosh Square computer. So something like 20,000 videos in that time. And then I moved into doing, I worked with Addenbrooke's Hospital. I was working on technologies for building a virtual Addenbrooke's way back in the early 90s. And from there, I then moved to busy life. I then moved to London. Then I started a community development project. That was when Nelson Mandela came out of prison. He had sent an envoy to Tony Blair at that time to take the National Grid for Learning back to South Africa. But a kind of little political scene derived, because what the South Africans were looking for was looking at the National Grid. But at that time, it was the big ICT push, putting computers into libraries and various things. So that was the beginning of the ICT. And so this envoy asked Tony Blair, what are you doing in this country about disadvantaged communities? And they weren't. They were only just rolling this out. And he said, so how are you going to sell us something when you haven't taken care of disadvantages in your country? And anyway, I got born. He found me at a trade show in London talking about virtual communities way back in the 90s. And anyway, he asked me to get involved, and I went to a big conference, and it was NIAS. We had the CEO of Cisco, Compaq, Cable and Wireless, looking at how to help disadvantaged communities with this technology. And anyway, the long and short of it is I embarrassed everybody because at that time they was talking about how can they provide money to help people coming from other countries into the UK, talking about the dole. And I'm going to tell you this because it's really interesting, about the dole and how we're going to help them. And you had this envoy from South Africa. And I'm listening to these people talk, and I'm sitting around looking around because I'm probably the only odd one out, right? American. I'm like, is anybody listening to this but me? And I said, you guys are under the assumption that people come to UK because they're looking for your handouts. You have it wrong. If you've traveled, you go to these countries, if they don't work, they don't eat. Their mentality is working in order to eat. But when you come here, I said, you don't realize you're turning them into the Motisa tribe. Now you got to imagine a whole room full of people, and there you have me talking about Motisa tribe. What's the automatic assumption? I'm talking about an African tribe. So I said, you haven't heard of the Motisa tribe? They went, no, what's the Motisa tribe? I said, they're right here in England. And he was like, I said, you sure you haven't heard of the Motisa? Motisa? Mortisa? The reality is, anytime you take people on a dole and give them money, you're turning them into slaves. Because you, instead of teaching me how to fish, you're making me come to you. So therefore, by giving free money, you are changing these people's mentality that work for a living into being reliant on you every week to get the dough money. So how am I free if I have to come to you for my food? And how do I teach my child if all they know is me standing in the dough line for food?
And I just thought you were going to tell me about your app and all that. Wow, that's the first 20 minutes sorted out.
Journey.
You got loads to talk about.
Sorry.
By the way, this is a husband and wife team. I'm just going to explain that we put Eddie in the middle. Eddie
Sit me in the middle.
Yeah.
No worries. But anyway, that's it.
Well, I'm Eddie Power. Some will remember the reciprocal health agreement with the UK, which the UK decided, Gordon Brown decided he was going to get rid of. We had a battle. I got involved with some of the MPs, Andrew McKinley in particular, and we got a reversal on the whole thing, and it came up to what is now the reciprocal health agreement that we have, which was a battle. And at the time, I was sat there thinking, well, I couldn't find information on MHKs to a certain extent. There was the minor stuff, but you couldn't get in-depth stuff. Sort of questions they'd asked and all this sort of thing. So I thought, well, there's a space for a website here. And then I looked at They Work For You, which operates across, and they cover the whole of Westminster, and I could never get to the size that they do, but they do that sort of thing. So I set this thing up. And then Tynwald, for whatever reason, started to expand theirs, but I worked with them. They expanded their website. And the bulk of mine now, yes, there's information on every MHK, there's contact details on everyone, but there's also the most popular one now is the audio one, because I just put up the audio links and you can search it through mine, and one click and you're straight into the Tynwald one. So I'm not upsetting the Tynwald ones, and that's what I did. And then I realised there was a space for information. There was also information for we're not just Crown dependencies, got all the British overseas territories. You've got Gibraltar, you've got the Cayman Islands, you've got BVI. You end up down the Ascension Islands, which is seagulls, basically, and penguins. Funny enough, I did one today on those, and that sort of thing. But the information came, so I set up the two. And the biggest source of it for both actually is Facebook. Because that runs like a newspaper.
You keep tabs on these people, basically.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone's got their little list there.
Yeah, very much. And the other thing which I did like when Alan Bell was Chief Minister, as you know, we had a very good relationship with Ian Gorst, who was the Jersey one. Because before, we had always been, we are the Isle of Man. They would say, we're Guernsey, we're Jersey, we're different. And Alan was very keen on getting them together. And I could see that this was working, and it pays to, and they've separated a little bit now, but this is what I sort of pushed, and by having everything on the same page, on a Facebook page, you can go down through and compare, and this is what people were comparing what the others were doing, not in a competitive way always, and in sometimes they could take the ideas, they're not openly sort of grab it and say, yes, this is what we need to do, but somebody will think, oh yeah, that's not a bad idea, we can put a twist on that, and that was the idea. And it is, you know, we're having so many battles over tax havens and everything else. You need to get together. There's strength in numbers. There's no doubt about that.
Well, here we go with the election this year. So you have to rattle out. I mean, some more names. I mean, 50% almost, wasn't it? On the last election, getting in, wasn't it? Almost a turnover, that sort of thing. Amazing, really, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
Right, Sue. Hello. As I said, husband and wife team. Do you get much chance to talk at home? I mean.
What are you trying to say?
He's like that.
Tell me, you're a hotelier.
Yes. I took over King's Guest House last February, which was a
there's a good time of anything. Wow.
Story of my life, my timing.
It's the boutique hotels that you've turned it around a bit.
Well, yes, I've actually. The silver lining for me was I've spent all year updating the rooms, going out, buying new stuff, upcycling. I like, recycling and upcycling stuff. So I'm obviously each room is individual. So that's how I've been spending my time. So it's been quite good. But in my lifetime, I've done loads of jobs.
What, more than him?
Yes.
Oh. Oh, you get a lot of talking again.
I've done everything from, I worked for the Ministry of Defence at RAF Stafford in the UK. I've worked for Farmers Guardian newspaper. I've worked for Blackpool Gazette. I've been a taxi driver. I opened up my own shop, had it built at the side of a house, and opened that up with an off licence. I've done just anything and everything.
Fascinating. And welcome to the Isle of Man. How have you been here, guys? By the way?
Oh, yeah.
I've been here 3 years.
Yeah.
And I've been here 4.5.
And we've been here for pretty well.
I've been here over 30 years.
Right. Let's
over.
get underway. We're 10 minutes into the show already. Okay. We've got end of lockdown, you know, the version 2 and all that. I want some views on what you think the government did, how it did it, especially, I mean, you in the hard end of this, of course, being shut probably mostly, but your views on how it's gone, and we always talk about the press conferences and a review of those. I mean, do you have a chance to listen to them? Who should start with? Eddie, go on, get on, because I mean, you're a fan of these. Well, I say fan. You follow these things.
I don't watch them all, but I watch most of them.
Yeah,
I'll sit there in the evening, well, not in the evening, late night. It's been an example of how to do it this time, I must admit. And yes. You know, they decided, right, lockdown, bang. And I think that's probably the only answer you can deal with it. It's unfortunate for businesses, but there's a phrase which is floating around Jersey, because everybody will know that Jersey didn't do this. And it is wealth before health, is what people are accusing the Jersey government of operating as. Guernsey did the same thing. Guernsey was as long as us, but unfortunately they had a problem, a hiccup, which just goes to prove no matter how much, and even now, you know, okay, we're open again. It would only take one person to walk back in and avoid it, and you've got a problem.
And we're all over the news at the minute.
Oh, yes.
I mean, suddenly Guernsey was doing so well.
Even Canada, apparently.
It was on Danish television as well. Everyone wanted those pictures of everyone going to pubs at midnight. You know, that was the thing that floated everyone's boats. I can see a journalist in all the news. Oh, that's the one. All these alcoholics on the Isle of Man, you know. By the way, other islands are available.
That takes me back.
I know, but you used to hear that all the time. Well, let's talk about. I mean, you've been shut open, or how have you managed?
I've been open all the time, obviously without any tourists. No visitors, but
vacationers and things.
No, I've not had the staycations, but I have let a couple of the rooms, or you know, a couple of guys off the island that are in between sort of flats or relationships or whatever, and they've ended up.
That's very politely put.
With the bin bag of clothes, and so I've let a couple of rooms. Let them stay, and obviously that's been quite good. On top of that, I've got 4 in at the moment like that, and then I've took in people that are self-isolating. So I did, quite a few of those from November through December, and now I've just got a lady in this is a second time that she's been across for a day treatment, and then having to self-isolate.
Oh, these people get caught in this whole thing. It's constantly the questions we get asked about how to get around this one.
But the government are actually paying for, now they're paying for the people that have been across for the hospital appointments coming back. You know, they're paying towards their stay, which they did do in December. Then they stopped it at the beginning through January, and then they've restarted it, which is... that's excellent, because obviously if the people can't get the treatment here, which is very unfortunate, and they have to travel across there, that is not their fault, so.
But how's your bank balance on this whole thing? Because, I mean, you should be looking at TT numbers and all that sort of thing. Here it's gone for the second year already. How do you do?
Well, I don't have any figures for myself, obviously, for 2019. I only have whoever ran the hotel prior to that. So, I was full of expectations, obviously taking it over second week in February, and I thought, just a good clean, and then people will be flooding in, and I can do it up as we go along. However, that's not happening.
You sound very upbeat considering, but...
Oh, yes. It'd be more devastating, I think, if I'd been running it for, obviously many people, for 5 or 10 years, because they know they've taken money for their hotel or guest house, and then to have zero. Whereas I started with zero, and I'm still at zero.
Well, you never laugh about that. So
I mean, the government have helped. Obviously, they've helped, but that money doesn't equate to last year's TT and this year's TT. You'd have taken far more in those 4 weeks than any government payment. However, without it, people just would not have survived in the hotel industry. You just wouldn't have, that's kept, paid you a bit of money plus, paying your bills.
Well, you know, Paul, you go back 25 years ago, there were all the little hotels down along the prom. And other than TT and Manx Grand Prix, they were closed.
Yeah.
People lived off that.
Yeah.
And this is what they suddenly found hard. And I had a friend that actually bought 2 hotels over here. And their attitude was, he's gone and retired now, but his attitude was, forget TT. I'll get in as whatever people I can, and what I get from TT is the cream on the top. And unfortunately, as he said, the attitude he'd got here back then was TT will look after us. Anything else we get is just a little bit extra. And that was part of the problem with the hotels, I think.
Yeah, you've got to work really hard. Yeah. And there's so many. I've spoken to quite a few people who have hotels that are either that have got them up for sale, put them up for sale, and quite a few that said they won't, if the borders don't open, they're not going to survive this year.
But there is support, right? Government support, not that much.
You can pay your bills. I mean, to heat a place. I mean, all these places have problems with damp. You've got to keep the heating on, so gas, electric rates. But you've got to take. It gets to a point where are you going to earn more money going and working in Next or somewhere like that, or keeping this, your hotels open and the upkeep, because the money's not that great that it can run to giving you a good, a decent wage.
So people selling hotels, nobody's really want to buy them, are they? I mean,
well, we had we were talking to a financial gentleman a couple of months ago, and he was saying the banks don't want to lend on hotels and guest houses. So once they've sold them, and either, a few of them, I think Chinese gaming companies have bought a couple of quite sizable ones.
This is for all their people who are working in the e-gaming stuff.
So those rooms have gone.
Yes.
And once and other people have been looking for converting some of these guest houses to apartments. Yeah. So again, all those rooms have gone. So come TT next year, there's going to be a lot of people that haven't got anywhere to stay.
This is always a risk, isn't it? Well, you see, we had a purge, didn't we, at one time? You had the stores, everything went quiet. And as I say, people were relying on TT. And then you had the hospital. Everybody that worked at the hospital stayed in hotels on the prom. And they brought all these people there. Mary Veg was another one. But there's nothing coming on. And this was getting in the construction industry, but I remember I worked for Ready Mix, and we had a boss there who said the worst thing with the Isle of Man is they do everything in one go. They had all these major construction things which were bringing people in, people were staying in hotels, they were spending money. Well, you remember the prom at 5 o'clock at night or in the morning was amazing. It was like Blackpool during the season, all the year round, and that everybody was making money, but they do it all in one go, and then after that there's nothing, instead of just sort of spreading your jobs out. And you got an example here with the prom, and you
the proms we mentioned. Here we go.
Paul Rose Bridge. Did you see that video yesterday? DOI showing their own video of the water the other day on why they need a new bridge.
It's really high, right?
Because it's really high. Yeah, what's the first time in 12 months it's been that high?
Yeah.
That's why we need a bridge.
Oh, cynical. I need to talk to you about you've been doing with this. I'm calling it the app and that sort of thing. But I did try at the press conference, but they didn't seem very keen on you on that thing. But it does seem genius. And there is a full video about what you do. But maybe we'll just take our first break. We've done about 20 minutes, so we'll have much more here on the Weekend Debate. Join us here for part 2.